Hello everyone! Today I will be introducing ways to teach reading with Horrid Henry, and this is a book that you can find from the Learning Castle website. Today's agenda is basically to introduce the chapter book Horrid Henry, and then I will be introducing some warm-up, specifically targeting some vocabulary activities. I will show something that's fun that you can do with your students called Vocabulary Spinner, and some worksheets that you can use in your classes as a more challenging way of working through your vocabulary. And then I will be introducing 4 main activities per chapter. And these are things that you can use for Horrid Henry because it is divided into 4 different chapters that are somehow related, some that continue. So it's a good way to mix different character maps, interviews with a character, or even a vocabulary booklet, and like a wrap-up as through a book report. Then we will wrap up and I will show you where you can find Horrid Henry from the Learning Castle website. Okay, so Horrid Henry by Francesca Simon, illustrated by Tony Ross, is a fiction. If you've already read this book or if you're already familiar with this book, it is about a boy that does some naughty things. And but these are things that our own students can actually relate to because some of these things that they also enjoy doing or have fun doing, or maybe they could be doing it on purpose or be doing it accidentally. But these are things that students can read and see because sometimes they do this themselves, and they can look at Horrid Henry from a third point of view and be the judge themselves and see whether this is right, this is wrong. And these are ways this book, Horrid Henry book, is something that they can read and see for themselves the value, friendship, family, and so on. So I think this is a really good book to introduce to grade 3 to even 4 and 5 students. And this you can find in the Learning Castle level as Senior C. And I assure you that students will have fun reading and for teachers to have fun teaching as well. So just to show you a text, Horrid Henry has some images, and sometimes you can find a whole page full of texts. So this is a good book for children who like to see a little bit of pictures that go with the text, but not entirely pictures because you also want students to read and have fun at the same time, learn about reading and writing and speaking. And listening if you use the activity sheets later on. So as a warm-up, I've said that we can use this thing called Vocabulary Spinner. Spinner obviously is something that goes around. So what you can do is to write things that you can find out about a word, such as defining it, drawing, finding a synonym or an antonym, what rhymes with a certain word or the part of speech. You can act it out or you can use it in a sentence, and you can make a spinner. After you write it down in each of those parts, you can form a spin as well in the middle. So first is to make a spinning wheel, and then you spin, and then students get to answer according to the word that was chosen. So for example, the word chosen is battle. Then we have the spinner, and you can spin. And the word lands, or the spinner lands on give a synonym. So what is a synonym of battle? Then the students can say, oh, I think it's a fight. Then this is how you can use the spinner in your classes. If your classroom is a little high-tech, then you can also do the vocabulary spinner online through pickerwheel.com or other different website tools that you can use. So for example, let's say we spin. This you can use by going online, then typing these different inputs, such as what rhymes, give a synonym, use it in a sentence, act it out, what part of speech, and you can put in whichever ones you want, and you can even remove them afterwards. So this is a very easy tool for teachers to use, and very effective tool in fact. So for example, the word, let's spin. The word is horrid. Then we have the synonym. It lands on synonym. And what's a synonym of horrid? It's awful. So students can, you can give time for students to answer, and they will say awful. Okay, then let's spin again. The word this time, for example, is despair. Then it lands on defining despair. Then we see, when you define despair, it is to feel no hope. Well, if we do another one, let's spin. This time the word is slurp. Then if we were to use this in a sentence, Tina makes a loud noise when she slurps. So these are things that students can answer as you play this fun game. Well, if you want to make the introduction a little more challenging, then I think you can go and use activity sheets with your students. And of course, this is for students that are more higher level. These are students that are more comfortable writing on a piece of paper and forming longer sentences. And then you can write the word and then have the students find the definition, find the synonym, and also write the sentence that uses the word. Okay, now let's dive into the contents and how we can use each activities per chapter. The first one, I will be using a character map for the chapter titled Horrid Henry's Perfect Day. Second, I will be doing an interview with of the dance teacher. Well, obviously because the chapter is about dance class. Third, I will be doing a vocabulary booklet for the third chapter called Horrid Henry and Moody Margaret. Lastly, I will be doing a book report, like as a wrap-up for the last chapter called Horrid Henry's Holiday. Now, looking at the first activity called Character Map, you can pick any characters that you want, but because this is an introduction, for example, let's say this is the first time your students are reading Horrid Henry, then I think it would be good for you to use Horrid Henry and someone that is quite different from Horrid Henry, which the book very clearly and explicitly shows as Perfect Peter, his brother. So here we can look for adjectives. Guide students to look for adjectives because this is one where you're looking for how one looks. And usually adjectives show that. So when you're looking for how Henry looks, look for adjectives from the book or simply look at the picture. For the second one, how does Henry act? Try to look for verbs. Obviously, action. Verbs are action words, and you can look for that. Look for those words in the book. Same for the other characters as well. And then for what does Henry think, what does Peter think, then look for how characters think or reflect in the book. Sometimes you can actually even look for the words Henry thinks or Henry said. Or these are clues that you can find from the book where you can reflect on what the characters are thinking. So I will show you a couple of examples. The first line is already, Henry was horrid. Horrid, as you know, is an adjective. So we could put that in the looks section. How does Henry look? He looks horrid. You can also look at the picture that I have of him picking on the worm. And we can say he's a little naughty or he's mean. And then so on onto the text, you can find that Henry throws food, Henry snatched, Henry pushed and shoved and pinched. So these are action verbs. So you can also write them down on the acting category. Henry throws food, Henry snatches, pushes, and pinches others. So this is something that you can guide your students to write. And as we read, we can see the clue word, think. But horrid Henry started to think. So what if I were perfect, thought Henry. I wonder what would happen. So here it's very easy. What does Henry think? Henry starts to think, what would happen if he were perfect like Peter. So usually he's a very mean, naughty boy, but he's always scolded by his parents, and he thinks, what if I were like an angel like Peter? Then we can see a shift in the story, and using the character map, you can help students pick that out from the text. Let's do another one of Peter. As you can see, there's a halo on top of Peter. He looks like an angel. So you can look at the pictures and see that he is sweet. He's nice. And he actually looks like an angel. And how does he act? Perfect Peter always said please and thank you, and he loved vegetables. So we can also see that Peter says polite words. He eats healthy food. So he's very different from Peter. So as students are writing this, you can point out that these are ways in which Peter is different from Henry. And later on in the text too, to give you just a little bit of a context, like we discussed when we're doing Henry's character map, Henry has a switch in his thoughts, and he thinks of ways where he thinks of trying to be kind instead of being mean. So Peter, thinking and expecting Henry to be someone mean and vicious, he expects it, but then when he doesn't get the response that he thinks, he starts to wonder. And he says, but no peas bopped him on the head. Now where was that foot that always kicked him under the table? So Peter thinks Henry will attack him back, but doesn't. He wonders why. So these are clues, and these are moments in the book where we see that there's a shift in what Peter and Henry thinks, and this is a helpful guide when you're using a character map. So next activity is interviewing a character from a book, from a chapter or a book. So first we look at the passage, and then we use different steps. There's, in fact, 3 different steps where you could reach to interview a certain character, and this is found in the Learning Castle worksheet workbook. So this is a text that I have brought, and if I were to point out a couple and explain to you what happens is Miss Tutu, the dance teacher, actually doesn't like children that much. She especially does not like Henry. But Peter, she ends up liking because Peter is supposedly always perfect. So for step 1, when you're planning to think of interviewing Miss Tutu, you can first pretend you are interviewing Miss Tutu, then you can brainstorm some things that you would like to learn more about. So what do I want to learn? I want to learn is if she is mean or kind. She looks mean in the picture, but maybe there's a behind story. Maybe she used to be a kind person. You don't know that. And because the text says she hates children, I want to learn, the student wants to learn why she hates children, why she likes Peter, how about Henry, and if she will ever punish Henry for what he did in her dance class. And in step 2, you can think of a list of questions you can actually ask Miss Tutu. So for example, you can ask, why does she hate children? Then maybe you could think of what you're hoping to learn by asking that question. Well, I want to learn why she hates children when she actually teaches kids. Shouldn't she like kids if she teaches children, or is that not? Another question that you can ask is she mean or kind? Well, the student, I want to learn if she is usually a kind person or if she is only mean to children. And you can, these are things that you can help guide students to ask and write down. And step 3 is to write an interview with Miss Tutu. So me, the student, can say, hello, Miss Tutu, do you like children? And Miss Tutu would possibly say, no, I don't like children. They are very noisy and naughty. And then the student can ask, how about Peter? He's a good boy. And Miss Tutu answers, yes, that's true. Peter is perfect. He listens to me and does everything right. And you can continue to have students work on this. And you can even have students pair up and write if you feel like students will need help working on this activity. Next one for chapter 3 is to use a vocabulary chart or map. Horrid Henry comes with a word book like this, and it has different chapters, and you can see different words and sample sentences from it. So for example, from chapter 3, we decide to choose a word, clutch. So we have the word clutch written down, and then you can find the definition. You can work with students or have students work on their own or in pairs to write sample sentences. And then what you can find with the word, some associations. Sometimes, or most of the time, clutch is used followed by the word onto. The eagle clutch onto the mouse. Or the clutch, since it's doing this, you usually do it tightly. And you can help students understand the word by showing that these two words go together, clutch and tightly, or clutch and strongly. And also you can help students think that clutch is a type of a bag that you hold like this. Hence, you clutch, or a clutch bag. If we were to do another word from chapter 3, let's bring the word gooey. And you can have students make their own definition. This helps them remember the word more clearly. And this can lead students to have more fun thinking of the word and making a word map. And then lead them to look for the dictionary definition of gooey, which is soft, wet, and sticky. Well, it's no different from the student's own definition. And some associations that students can think of, word clues, and a picture that can go with a word. Well, up till chapter 3, we've done clusters of looking at different parts like characters and maps or vocabulary maps. Well, this time I would, for example, as a wrap-up, as a teacher, I would like to do a book report. And for this one, there's a good guideline as to how you can do it. So you can bring in some texts, just as I did, as you can see in the screen, and we can work the plot. So for this demo, let me just work on the plot with you guys. So here, for a plot to work, you need to have a problem. And then there are certain important events, like a climax that leads the story to be exciting. And then there's a certain solution. As I'm working this, please remember that the problem is from Henry's point of view, and that the solution as well is from Henry's point of view. The problem that Henry faces at the camp is that Henry is someone that likes comfy beds, crisp sheets, hot baths, microwave dinners, TV, and noise. And he did not like cold showers, fresh air, and the quiet, which he ends up finding at camp. And then later on, the important event is that Henry was told by his parents to look for wood that they can light up to make fire. And then he saw the thick, dry pegs from the tents. So what did he end up doing? Well, he ended up doing what many people may not do, but he took a few pegs from each tent. And later we find that it's very critical because it starts raining. And the solution is, because he hated the camping site, for him as a solution is to find somewhere he could have comfy bed, crisp sheets, and so on. So because the tents lost one peg, everything collapsed. So when rain fell hard on everyone, they had to pack and leave. So they decided to go to a hotel, and this made Henry very happy. So for him, the day was saved. by them going to a clean hotel where Henry could do everything that he wanted to for vacation. So today, as a wrap-up, we looked at some warm-up vocabulary activities and worksheets that we could use, such as vocabulary spinner, or word of the day, or word charts. And then for each chapter, we discussed some worksheets that we can use per chapter, where students can read and then connect it by writing, read, and then look for clues from the book, go back to the book, and learn more in depth about characters or the word or the plot in itself. Going into where we can find this, obviously you can go into the Learning Castle website, and then you can look for the materials as you could see on the screen. So if you click on it, you'd be able to see certain materials such as teacher's guide, answers, MP3, words lists, and tests, and so on, for you to help teach in your classes more efficiently and more practically. So in the teacher's guidebook, you can find a whole bunch of materials that you can use for each of the skills, such as vocabulary, listening, reading, speaking, writing, and so much more. I hope that this guide has been really helpful for teachers, and I hope that this will be a productive time for you when you're teaching your students, and that you were able to learn some new things to use in your classes. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.